It's one small step for man.
Ronald Reagan, President of the United States.
One
I'm
giant
speaking to
leap
you
for
as
mankind.
of the Soviet Union.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Retrospective. Now, as I'm sure you're all aware, Eureka! The Soviet Union has fallen. As we look back on the Cold War as it comes to a close, we continue our series on the crises of the Cold War. Tonight, Episode 3, The Congo Crisis. Now to our lead historical analyst, Sydney Applebaum. Sydney?
Hi. Thank you, Dale. The Congo, a former colony of Belgium, officially gained independence on June 30th, 1960, at which time Patrice Lumumba of the Congolese National Movement was able to form a Congolese government.
Who is Patrice Lumumba? I mean, that's a difficult question. I would say ultimately, he was somebody who wanted complete, genuine independence for his nation, a complete separation from Belgian and Western business interests.
Still, the achievement of Lumumba's wishes remained in the distant future even after he assumed power. Independence Day by no means indicated an end to foreign involvement in the affairs of the Congolese. Rather, the nation was transformed into an ideological battleground for the Cold War. Shortly after the Congo achieved independence, the Belgian government declared they would maintain control over the more important sectors of the government, including the military.
The Belgians did virtually nothing to prepare the Congolese for self-rule. There were colonial prohibitions on free speech, assembly, and travel, all of which were maintained until the very eve of independence. Political discussion and coalition building, beyond the local levels, of course, were all but impossible. The Congolese simply were not granted educational opportunities and high-level jobs. Only 30 university graduates lived in the Congo when Lumumba took over. On all accounts, the Congolese were poorly prepared for independence.
So, perhaps because of this lack of readiness, the Belgians maintained a presence in the Congo, which was, of course, met by public outcry. On July 5th, marking the beginning of the Congo crisis, the ANC mutinied against the Belgian colonial leaders. Soon after, the South Kasai region broke away, and then on July 11th, the Katanga region formed its own government under Tshombe, essentially a puppet ruler assisted financially by the Union Miniere.
The breaking off of the Katanga region was profoundly associated with the underlying economic motivations of the Congo crisis. The region possessed rich mineral wealth essential for the West's economic and military development. U.S. government officials who met with Tshombe shortly after Congolese independence readily admitted their desire to protect American capitalist interests in Katanga. The region was practically a gold mine.
The question can then be asked, where specifically did Cold War tensions come into all of this? What about communism and ideological turmoil? In fact, as early as the 1950s, Lumumba was viewed as overly close with the Soviets. In 1958, contact with Nkrumah at the AACP conference illustrated these sympathies with the East, while secret contact in April with the Soviet ambassador in Brussels solidified this association. On July 8th, Lumumba met with Soviet Rakhmatov to establish diplomatic relations between the USSR and the Congo.
The United States was scared. I mean, Eisenhower went as far as to authorize the CIA to bribe key Congolese politicians to prevent Lumumba from coming to power in the first place.
The conflict between East and West only became more heightened when Lumumba called the United Nations on the 12th of July for assistance in putting down mutinies across the Congo. So, under the direction of Hammarskjöld, the UN peacekeeping forces descended in the nation.
By the end of July 1960, it was clear Dag Hammarskjöld was piloting the UN operations in the Congo to favor the U.S. and Western capitalist interests. For instance, the U.S. never readily authorized the UN to take over Katanga or even use force to evict Belgian troops.
Ultimately, the UN failed to effectively support Lumumba, so he turned to the USSR after being rebuffed by the Eisenhower administration. Lumumba wrote to Khrushchev asking him to intervene, quote, should the Western camp not cease aggression against the sovereignty of the Congolese Republic. The USSR agreed to help, sending in food and dispatching planes to airlift Ghanaian troops to the Congo. By August, the USSR even demanded Belgium withdraw its troops from Katanga. The US responded to this more overt Soviet involvement by supporting General Joseph Mobutu in seizing power in the Congo in order to end relations with the USSR. By 1963, due to immense US pressure and UN troop intervention, Tshombe fled to Rhodesia and the Congo was once again reunited.
The US and the USSR were so very deeply involved in the Congo crisis. It was, after all, the US that helped Mobutu overthrow the civil government in 1965, establishing a military dictatorship. The Congo crisis solidified Africa as an important pawn in the Cold War.
The demand for independence then, and for many years to come, was construed by the West as a communist-inspired movement. The Soviets became the ones to fund the subsequent struggles against imperialism in southern Africa. Precisely through the Congo crisis, in other words, the USSR created for themselves a solid basis for a future ideological alliance. Yet, this ideological alliance was not without its downsides. The Congo crisis, in fact, further fractured the Sino-Soviet schism. Both communist states found themselves engaged in a bitter rivalry to win support in Africa. This, paired with China's growing view of Moscow as being too cordial with the West, greatly contributed to splintered relationships between the two nations.
Well, there you have it, a retrospective on the Congo crisis, forever engraved in Cold War history. Thank you all for watching. Up next, Seinfeld.
Wow, that's big. Gee, wow. Say what?
Go Birds.